Welcome to the Cabincast, your Getaway Primer.
The Cabincast is brought to you by Roughing It in Style. Roughing It in Style's family business was created to supply folks like you with unique furnishings that fit homes where memories are made. And like these memories, their handmade furniture and decor is made to last. They emphasize creative innovation in interior design, cabinet design, and custom furniture. Their designers are available to help you create spaces that are warm, inviting, and fit your unique style. There are 2 locations, one in the Northwoods of Wisconsin in Harshaw, 10 miles south of Minocqua, and one out west in Fort Collins, Colorado. Find out more today at roughingitinstyle.com. Today's episode is a lot of fun. Not only do we get to talk to Peter about the science behind distilling, but he brings along some of his products for us to taste.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against Peter, but the tasting at the end was really kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, no, that was perfect. He sure knows how to make a good spirit, and we definitely did a little sampling.
Yeah, and I love going to this distillery, too. It's just a great atmosphere, and the cocktails are so good. It's a great place to pick up a gift. You know, it's a fun place to go to, so it was nice to meet the man behind all the drinks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a popular spot in town now for sure as well. He just built a new building in Minocqua, kind of right as you head into town. And we just did a Chamber After 5 event there. So that was the first time I met him and spoke to him about the podcast and what we were doing. And you had met him a few times before.
Yeah.
Sounded like you may have been a customer.
Yes, a few times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian and I love to have a bourbon in front of the fire at night after the kids go to bed or while we're all sitting around. And it's kind of our drink of choice. So we've really liked what he has to offer there at the distillery. And what's your favorite thing to sip on?
So up until recently, I've been mostly beer.
Yeah.
So I like Captain Morgan and Coke, which is more, I think, left over from my college days.
Right, yeah.
And I just started getting into bourbon and whiskey. A friend of mine bought a pretty high dollar bottle of whiskey and had it around at hunting camp and poured a glass. And I realized that, like, oh, this isn't, it doesn't taste like the rail whiskey that my buddies used to drink with their cocktails. There's actually some really, really interesting flavors going on. And it kind of got me diving in. And of course, the old fashioned up in the north, we talk a lot about those, but I dive in now. I like a whiskey old fashioned sour. So this was definitely a great interview for me as I kind of dive in and explore the world of bourbon and whiskey and all that entails.
Yeah. When we go out now, I think it's true kind of what you said about your college days and where you start drinking and then kind of how you evolve. Some of it's what you can afford as you grow older.
Sure, absolutely.
And then as your palate develops and your appreciation for the drinks also develops,
yep.
Even with beer.
Absolutely.
What you like to drink. I know we can kind of think of our life in stages by what kind of drinks we order when we go out
Sure.
or what we enjoy at home. And right now we love to order a Manhattan when we go out.
Okay.
And sit and sip that at the bar before we go to the table. I'll usually switch to wine at dinner. But boy, I'll never forget the first moment I had a great Manhattan, because...
Now what, do you know all the ingredients in a Manhattan?
Well, they usually, we'll put the bourbon in and we usually pick what kind we like, or we'll ask the bartender what's a great new bourbon we should try. And then they put some vermouth in it.
Okay.
And then we usually have cherries in ours.
Sure. Okay.
So
cool.
You don't have too many Manhattans though. They're pretty potent.
Strong. Yeah. My grandmother would always have, I believe it was a Manhattan every night. Mm-hmm. And, when you're a kid and you sneak up and take a sip, it doesn't taste very good. So I was like, how does she drink this thing?
Right.
So that's what I think of when I think of Manhattans, but that's so vermouth and whiskey.
Yeah. And when, you're a few years younger than me, so maybe that'll be in a couple of years, you'll be thinking
just
it tastes
moving
good.
up. Yeah. Just
right. When you get closer to your grandmother's years, then you'll be okay.
All right. That sounds good. I'll get that on the list. Fantastic. Well, when I was at Peter's distillery, I walked up and saw a kind of cool quote on the wall. And he had a quote from Winston Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill. And I thought I would read it for the Cabincast. I thought it was a really interesting take on whiskey. Now I want you guys to imagine like a deep, rich British accent as I'm reading this, and not really great at accents. And we're not quite at the stage yet where we're hiring British voice actors to read the quotes.
I think you should practice it, and we'll come back to this another time and see how you've got.
See if I got just add that to my
By the time you drink Manhattans, you'll have your British voice.
Yeah, perfect. So they are looking for a new James Bond. So maybe.
Oh, there we go.
If I really get it down right, I could be a pretty terrible James Bond, like a Northwoods James Bond. I think that would be.
This is not a bad idea. We should try this.
Yeah. So, all right. Sir Winston Churchill was once asked about his position on whiskey. Here's how he answered. If you mean whiskey, the devil's brew, the poison scourge, the bloody monster that defiles innocence, dethrones reason, destroys the home, creates misery and poverty, yea, literally takes the bread from the mouths of children. If you mean that evil drink that topples men and women from the pinnacles of righteousness and gracious living into the bottomless pit of degradation, shame, despair, helplessness, and hopelessness, then, my friend, I am opposed to it with every fiber of my being. However, if by whiskey you mean the oil of conversation, the philosophic wine, the elixir of life, the ale that is consumed when good fellows get together, that puts a song in their hearts and the warm glow of contentment in their eyes, if you mean good cheer, the stimulating sip that puts a little spring in the step of an elderly gentleman on a frosty morning, if you mean that drink that enables a man to magnify his joy and to forget life's great tragedies and heartbreaks and sorrow, if you mean the drink, the sale of which pours into our treasuries untold millions of pounds each year, that provides tender care for our little crippled children, our blind, our deaf, our dumb, our pitifully aged and infirm, to build the finest highways, hospitals, universities, and community colleges in the nation, then, my friend, I am absolutely, unequivocally in favor of it. This is my position. And as always, I refuse to compromise on matters of principle.
That is great. I have not heard that before. And I can see why he has it framed up in the distillery.
Oh, I think that matches whiskey pretty well.
Oh, yeah. What amazing writing, too.
Yeah. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this interview with Peter. We'd love to hear from you on what your favorite cocktails and ways that you guys use bourbon and whiskey and what your go-to drink is at the cabin, and if it's a campfire cocktail or sitting by, out on the deck, looking at the sunset over the lake, what are you sipping on?
Yeah, we would love to hear that. Just send it to our email, getaway@thecabincast.com. You can direct message it to us on Instagram, comment to us on Facebook, any way you want to send it. We'd love to hear from you.
Enjoy the show. All right, we'd like to welcome Peter Nomm. Peter and his wife Lisa founded the Northern Waters Distillery in 2013 in Minocqua, Wisconsin. Formerly the golf professional and general manager of the Mincoqua Country Club, Peter took the chance to bring a unique and intriguing business venture to the beautiful Northwoods of Wisconsin. Peter and Lisa's desire to create new ways of enhancing the flavors of their handcrafted spirits, all while sharing the journey and the process with others. The distillery operation in Minocqua is not just palate-pleasing, but highly visible. All visitors can learn about the process, smell the mash, see the raw spirits flowing from the still, and complete the experience by savoring the finished product. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks a lot, Erik. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you, Peter.
Thanks, Kristin.
Yeah. So, Peter, I think I met you a few years ago. It was when we're still downtown, when the distillery was in a place in downtown Minocqua.
Correct.
But I don't really know your background. Where did you grow up?
I grew up outside of Buffalo, New York, actually. Lived there until I went away for college and moved out. I was in the golf business, so I moved south. I went down to Texas first and then out to Arizona. Learned the business out there where you could do it a little more than you can up in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. But both my wife and I are Northerners at heart, so we wanted to get back north at some time, especially after our firstborn was around. So we came up north and got here in 2001, where I started my job at the country club.
Wow. Very cool. So did you start playing golf in high school or as a kid, or when did you start playing golf?
So it all started with my father. He never played golf in his life, but somehow randomly got invited to an alumni golf tournament, played in this event, and got absolutely hooked. And I came around a few months later and pretty much followed him around the golf course. I have no recollection of time before playing golf.
Oh, wow.
I was putting when I was standing, and I was following him to the golf course. So I was doing that my whole life. And it's neat because my kids kind of grew up the same way. So we have a uniqueness in that we all enjoy the game and love it and continue to play it all the time.
So how many kids do you have?
We have 3 boys. Okay. One's a senior at high school Lakeland. One's a sophomore in Madison right now, and a sophomore.
Okay.
You got to remember them.
And they all play golf.
3 of them. They do, especially younger 2 are very competitive. The oldest loves to play, just doesn't play it as competitively as the others, but he's got some natural talent. I keep telling him he should try it, but yeah, they all play.
And you help coach too, don't you?
I do. I've been working this past year with the Lakeland team, and we'll start again this next spring for the high school team. Not being involved working in the golf business anymore, it still gives me a chance to be involved with golf from that side of things too. So maybe a little selfishly, because 2 of the kids on the high school team are my own.
True.
But they're all good kids, and I've known these kids for a long, long time. I mean, they grew up playing tournaments with my kids, and it's a lot of fun working with them. We have actually sort of a program we're trying to develop the future teams right now. And the last 2 summers, I've also run some programs between both the country club and Timber Ridge, where we let the kids play out there all summer, and we have the older kids team with the younger kids. And by younger, I mean 5th, 6th, 7th graders, pre-high school kids, trying to get those that are interested in the game to perpetuate the team, because you don't have a lot of opportunity for golf in the Northwoods, and there's not a ton of kids, but we've got some kids that are very interested right now. And if we can keep the team going like we are, and like we have been, we've had very good luck the last few years. We want to keep that going. So it's keeps me involved with it, and there's some really good kids out there, good families involved, and it's a sport these kids can play their whole lives. So
that is true. It's a lifetime sport. Do you
Absolutely.
play golf, Erik?
I would
That's
call
a really
it playing.
positive answer right there.
I know you have to think about your answer.
Once a year, I used to play golf a lot more in New Glarus. I find there's too many trees in the Northwoods. My golf ball always seems to hit the trees that line up the fairway. So
yeah.
I think that's the Northwoods' fault, not my own.
Right?
There's got to be some reason, right?
Yeah, I think so.
For sure.
I like driving the cart.
Yeah.
That's the part I like. My dad's a golfer and other people in my family, but I don't know. I've never hit it far enough to really get any joy out of it. Maybe I'll have to take some lessons with you, Peter.
It's like anything else. It just takes time. I mean, you have to figure it out. You have to spend the time doing it. Most people are not fortunate to be born into the game and being able to play it. Our kids are lucky that they were able to do it. I mean, they saw it their whole lives, so they had a little advantage that way. But like anything else, you start it whenever you want. You just have to give it the time if you want to be good.
Right.
And if you're competitive, it's tough because you want to be better than you are.
Yeah.
Nobody's as good as they want to be.
Yeah, there's always room to grow. So
Absolutely.
What's your favorite course up in the Northwoods?
I'm partial to the country club. I mean, I haven't been there 13 years working, and now I'm still involved with it. There's so many good courses up here, but what's unique about that is it's just so playable. It's so serene back there. You rarely see any cars or houses. I could tell you that one thing I heard almost every day when I worked there is somebody had played it for the first time and would always finish up the round and come into the golf shop and say, I had no idea this existed up here. So it's pretty special. It's just a fantastic golf course. It's a very, very good blend of challenging, but not overwhelming that the beginner golfer wouldn't enjoy it, but the skilled golfer really gets a challenge out of playing it too.
And is it open to the public?
It's not. There are ways to get on, obviously, as there are with most places, but it is a private club.
Okay. So what's your favorite?
No, you just have to sneak on.
Well, that works, yeah. Trap doors.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what's your favorite public course up here?
Probably the most fun to play is actually Plum Lake,
Okay.
the 9-hole, and it's over 100 years old. I think they built it in 1912. It's so old school and unique. Talking about driving the golf cart, make sure you have a back brace on. I mean, it's old, so it's very bumpy, but it's a cool experience. The clubhouse, the first tee, the putting green, and the ninth green are right on the south shore of Plum Lake. I mean, it's not a golf course you're ever going to see on TV, but it's just a fun play. It's got a very unique, I think it's the fourth hole of par 3. You can't see the green from the tee because it's about 20 feet below the surface of the ground. It's like a big bowl, and they have about a 20-foot flagstick, and you just kind of have to aim at the flagstick. I mean, they don't build golf courses like that. They don't build holes like that anymore, but it's out there, and it's really cool. I mean, it's just, I try to go up there every year and bring the kids or bring my dad, someone to go play golf with. It's a fun experience.
Very cool.
So how did you go from golf to a distillery?
Erik, you're asking a question I probably get asked every day, and it's still hard to answer some ways. We used to always travel down to Florida for our trade show in the wintertime, and we could take the kids out of school, and we would kind of make a drive out of it. And pretty much halfway between here and Florida is your Tennessee and Kentucky region. And I would just like stopping. We would overnight there. I'd visit a distillery. I've always been interested in beer, wine, and spirits. But as I got older, I got more interested in whiskey in particular, and would buy a bottle. And I'm kind of a geek, so I would read about it and see where it was made and learn about it. And you go visit some of the distilleries down there, and that's right at the heart of where bourbon is made. So made a random comment one year on the way back up. We came out of a smaller distillery in a town that was sort of unique to, or sort of similar to Minocqua, and the uniqueness is that it's touristy and kind of a main strip where you have businesses and then just rural outside of that. And I said to my wife just randomly, why don't we have something like this in our town? And 12 hours of driving from Tennessee back home, I could tell you the wheels started turning. And I spent the rest of that winter and then the next year visiting as many Wisconsin distilleries, Illinois, Minnesota, talking to them. And it was one of those things, I looked for every excuse not to do it because I liked what I was doing in golf, but it was too good of a chance to not try it.
Right.
So that's something that's unique to the, I guess, alcohol industry with breweries. That everyone is so apt to help other people, in business. So you can walk into a distillery and talk to an owner, and he'll be like, "Yeah, this is what you should do. This is how you get set up." Why do you think the alcohol industry had, like other business? You wouldn't walk into a plumber and be like, "Tell me about plumbing. I want to open up a shop."
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you would think that of anything, it's going to be the opposite of it. I mean, people have their trade secrets and their recipes, but I think in doing this for 5 years, one thing I've learned is there's almost no end of the possible combinations of how it's crafted. When you deal with the different grains, how you ferment it, the yeast you use, ratios, your aging of your barrels, different length of time, different size barrels, different environment they're in. There's so much goes into it. You can blend things. You can go straight off the barrel. I think it's almost impossible to copy what someone else is doing. And with that, I think people are open. And I think particularly at this stage right now, craft distilling is maybe 10 to 15 years old. So it's still very new. And most of us are doing this because we wanted to, not because we have any reason to. And we probably all, like I did, learned from somebody else. And so it's sort of passing that on. I mean, I had a lot of people, I bent their ear a lot, called with questions over and over again. 5-6 years later, I'm getting those. I'm getting texts at 8:00 at night. How come my ferment's not doing what it should and all that? I love it. It's great. But that's how I got to where I am. And that's what you want to have other people do. So, plus it's like a lot of other organizations and people realize that if I help them out or they help me out, I will probably refer them at some point because there's not that many of us. And so one thing we don't have on the scale of like wineries or breweries is a big tour where we're trying to develop that for distilleries. So you come see me and I find out you're going up to Bayfield, for example, I will send you to go see Kurt at Copper Crow Distillery and vice versa. So I think there's a community of that where people are promoting each other and realize if we do that, they are going to, it's going to be a benefit coming back to ourselves too.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then you can sell other people's product at your space too.
Not right now. Not the way the laws are written with Wisconsin.
Okay.
There is potential legislation, but as you know, things take time. I'm not expecting it to happen tomorrow, but that's one of the things we'd like to see. We've got an alliance with the breweries and the wineries, and we're trying to push some things to allow us to do more things.
Yeah.
And it's all consumer driven. I mean, yes, the ideas are going to make us money and make us do more things, but it's ultimately about the consumer and what they want. And realize some of the laws on the books pertaining to alcohol are post-prohibition, so they're very close to 100-year-old laws, and things have changed.
Yeah.
So it's time to revisit those, and more people are realizing that, and hopefully we'll get some positive things moving forward.
Are there laws about when you can be open? And
Yes, I'm laughing as I say that because, and I don't know the specifics, but I think a winery, for example, has to close at 9, and a brewery is different than a brew pub, which is different than, there's one other classification. They all have different times. And from what I've read, there is no closing time for distillery. So if somebody wanders in at 3:30 in the morning, I could pour them a cocktail or sell them a bottle.
this is good to know,
yeah,
Erik.
it's good.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to be there, but for some reason I am. From what I know, there is no legislation I've ever seen that says what time we have to close. So we're trying to get that. Actually, that's one of the main things that's on the agenda, is to have a set time. Whether you're beer, wine, spirits, it doesn't matter. It's alcohol, and let's have similar laws pertaining to whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are your hours right now?
We just typically open till 7 in the evening for a number of reasons. One is we like a nice afternoon crowd. We didn't open the distillery to be a bar. That's just part of what it is, and we have very nice cocktails, but we like the atmosphere earlier in the day. And I also think about it at the same point is local bars are also not only they're not competitors in my mind, they're customers of ours. I mean, we want our product in theirs. So they're established. Let them be what they are and let us be what we are. And plus I'm getting older. I don't want to be out that late. So 7:00, if I'm home 7:30, it's just fine.
Yeah. One of the things I hear from people around town or that come up to visit is they love coming and having your craft cocktails. What's the most
Absolutely.
popular one?
The old fashions. We're in Wisconsin. The old fashions are good. And we have two in particular, the bourbon old fashioned or the Lenny old fashioned made with our blackberry whiskey. Those are the most popular ones. But what's neat about it too is we have two sides on our menu of cocktails, and we're always running different specials because we have almost 20 different product types you have. And then you start putting them together and mixing with different things. Talking about no end of the combinations, that's where cocktails are right there. And so we're always changing our menu and adding different things to it, rarely taking something off, but we're more adding it on, bringing more specials. And it's just, it's neat because we've made the spirits and you could see where it's made and you're drinking something with that. And as much as we can work locally to partner with different things, whether it's ingredients or sources and all that, we do that as well. So, we use real things. We don't use artificial flavors when we make our products. So you can tell that too. And it translates even into the cocktail. Some of the mixtures like the ginger beer and the tonic, they're made in Wisconsin. They're a company out of Milwaukee called Top Note. It's different than a regular store-bought one. So it's just, we have a lot of variety in there and a lot of flavor. And I think we pour a pretty good pour as well for the cocktail.
That's the rumor.
No, that's true. That's the rumor.
Yeah. What do you think is your most popular bottle that you sell off the shelves?
When we have it in stock, and I say that because we're still aging product from what we made at the old location, it's any of our aged spirits. Our bourbon is our main one that we produce, but we do other limited release ones. We do a rye whiskey, we do a wheat whiskey. What's in front of us right now are double barrels, which is where we take bourbon and then we finish it in either a beer cask, a wine cask, or the one we have, our Spring Fever, is finished in a maple syrup cask. Because whiskey takes time to age, anything that's about ready right now is what we produced in our old location, and we just didn't have the capacity. So we maybe filled a barrel every 2 or 3 weeks. We can fill 3 or 4 a week right now. So 6 months to a year from now is stuff we've made over the year, and then from then on starts to age. We'll have a good inventory of it. But right now, while we have any of the aged products out, whether it be the bourbon or whatever, that's definitely our most popular. Of the other products we do a coffee flavored vodka.
Yes, that is good stuff.
Never had it, have you?
Oh yeah, I have. I had it this weekend.
Yeah.
I know people that have it every night.
Yes, there are. Yes, we sell it by the case to some people.
It seems more like a morning drink if it's
It works. It's all the
Coffee
time,
flavored vodka.
Yeah.
So
We work with Dan over at Eagle River Roasters, and he brews the coffee for us, and we mix it with our vodka, and it's sweetened with a little organic cane sugar. That one's real popular. And then we have our blackberry whiskey, our black leadberry, which is a new product for us this spring. Many people have known Len Drusen, who did everything pretty much in town. The guy grew up here, most recently retired. He was the chief of police of Woodruff. And Len used to buy Canadian Club or Windsor, whatever was on sale at one of the stores whenever he could get it. And he would make blackberry whiskey out of it and just give it away to friends. And a couple years ago, he approached us and said, "This is what I make. I have this label for it. I've got everything ready to go. Is there a chance that we can actually make this for real?" And so we started that once we got into our new place, where we use blackberries and we flavor it with his recipe. It's got his label on there, his logo, and it's really a nice product. So we make that for him as well. And we bottle it. We do all the production of it there. We sell it. We distribute it for him. And that's one of our favorite old fashions, is use that, the Lenny old fashioned, because that's his name. And it's one of our more popular products too. I mean, it's still whiskey at 70 proof, but it's got a nice sweetness from the blackberries in there too.
That's a great story.
So what is the difference between bourbon and whiskey?
I was just going to ask that. That's
the second most question we get asked all the time. So whiskey is anything when you use a ferment from grain. Bourbon is a type of whiskey. So think of all the different ones out there. There's Scotch whiskey, there's rye whiskey, there's Canadian whiskey, Irish whiskey. Bourbon is whiskey made primarily from corn. So think of it as corn-based whiskey versus rye or wheat or anything else. The myth of it having to be made in Kentucky is not true. Unless I'm trying to call it Kentucky bourbon, then I better make it in Kentucky. But bourbon is an American whiskey. Has to be made in the States and has to be made from at least 51% corn in your mash, which means you've got 49% to play with. And going back to what I kept talking about, how many versatile things are out there, there's a lot of room for experimenting. And our typical bourbon we do is about 80% corn, so very high on the corn end of it, but we still do a lot of other ones. We do some we did one with 51.2% corn, so it's legally bourbon, but we have got a lot of other grains associated with it too to change the flavor.
Very interesting. I just had a bartender when I was traveling in Texas tell me that bourbons were only from Kentucky, and I was going to argue with him. Well, not argue. I was going to disagree with him, but I didn't have this fact from you to go with me.
You have to go back and
right.
I'm going to same bar.
I'm going to have to educate him.
Set the guy right.
Playing the podcast.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Need you to listen.
Yes. That's right. So what do you think is a drink or one of your bottles on the shelf that gets the least attention that should get more?
Our white pine flavored vodka. Before I started the distillery, I used to I'd take a bottle of vodka and I would clip a couple of little twigs off of a white pine and stick them in the bottle for a couple of days, and I would mix cocktails with it, whether a vodka tonic or a vodka cranberry, and you would get that sweet woodsiness. It's not the needles, it's the sap off the barrel. I mean, of course, off the twig, you'd get a little sap too in the way I made it back home. But now what we actually do is we infuse it during distillation. I mean, you'll see me out there clipping pine trees, little small ones down, and using a potato peeler and skinning the bark off of that. And that's what we run all the vapor through that. So it picks up a woodsiness and it picks up the flavor of the woods. And I don't know anyone else that uses pine in any spirits like that. We actually use a little bit of in our gin as well. But we do a strictly 100% made flavored with white pine. And we just, it's unique. It's very clean. It's not an overwhelming flavor, but if you make a typical vodka cocktail with it, you'll say, what's different about that? And what am I tasting? And then you smell it straight up and you smell trees and you smell like you're walking around in the woods.
I love that.
I think it's really neat. You're right. It's not as popular as I was hoping, but it's a really unique product that we'll see what happens. I mean, we continue to make it, and it's not that nobody buys it, but we get plenty to sell. It's just not as popular as some of the sweeter ones. It's pretty easy to sell sweet stuff,
right?
Like the coffee or the blackberry. But I'm not that person. I like the straight up sort of things like your whiskeys or vodkas.
A few years ago, my husband, I gifted him a book called How to Survive in the Woods. And he read a lot of it. And then he was telling us when we were hiking one time that he could survive from making pine needle tea. Mm-hmm. And we were laughing, thinking he was joking. And he showed us in the book. It was in there for real. And now I'm going to be able to buy this for him as a Christmas gift.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. From what I understand, the entire pine tree is edible. Not that you're going to sit out there and chewing it, but if you had to, you'd have that. And yeah, you get vitamin C from pine.
Yeah.
We've made a lot of pine needle tea.
I'm really interested to try that.
Yeah. It's a unique flavor. I mean, it's definitely made from right out the backyard, literally.
Yeah.
It's literally
Right from
taste
the
the
Northwoods.
Northwoods.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So take us a little deeper into the story. You had this dream and the 12-hour car ride, and then you get back to Minocqua and you open in a little place downtown.
Right.
To where you are now in this big, beautiful spot.
Yeah. I mean, starting off anything like that's a little intimidating. And so we tried to do it as minimal risk as possible. And that's why we chose the little building. We were very fortunate to be able to get in there, and the family we own the building that we leased it from let us go in there pretty much the first 6 months and get it set up, and we'll start billing you rent in the spring once you're open and making some money. So that was nice, but it's neat. You get a lot of ideas of how things will actually pan out, and most of it doesn't happen that way. I'm sure that's with any business, but what we wanted to do was explore spirits. I mean, I tell everybody on our tours, we go back into the barrel room and we're talking about whiskey, and I say we've been doing whiskey for 5 years. So, and I'm for those listening, I'm putting my fingers about a quarter of an inch apart. I said, we know about that much so far. I mean, whiskey's an exploration, and there's so much to learn about it, and so with the other spirits. So we went in with the goal of learning and exploring product and flavors and methods and trying to make different things. And I'll be the first to tell you, I have no business being in this business, but most of those that have a distillery that I know of have no business being in the business either. And it's just, we wanted to try something. And I think that's also the uniqueness. It's not like we're trying to sell grandpa's secret recipe or anything like that. We're just trying to explore it. And one of the things that was neat about the building we originally were in is our production room. While it was very small, it was very visible from the tasting room. And as we carried over to the new building, I wanted to make sure we had at least that, if not more. And it's a 16-foot window that we've got in there between our tasting room and the production room. And my production employees call it the fishbowl. I mean, they're working in the fishbowl every day. But I'll tell you, when people are in the tasting room looking in there, they love the fact that they can see what's going on in there, see all the equipment, see us doing the work. And as you mentioned in the intro, I mean, when you walk in the building, you smell the fermentation, and the vats that we ferment are right underneath the glass window. So you walk in there and you can see the bubbling going on, and it's very open. And we carried that from the old building into the new one, and among other things too. It was just we wanted, it's an experience, and that's what we're promoting. I mean, we're learning as much, and we're sharing the information we're learning with our customers. And some of the products, like the blackberry whiskey, but other things, have come from either suggestions or ideas from other people that we've had in there, our customers, and never know what's going to happen next.
So when you start a business that has one of your main products is something that requires aging, how does that work? From a business process
you have to
standpoint?
figure something else in the meantime. I mean, I think it was always a phrase that whiskey gives the thrills, but vodka pays the bills.
Okay.
Because many of the products we have can be released pretty immediately. I mean, when we started, we only had our unaged corn whiskey, which is what we call our moonshine. And I promise you, that's not our best selling product. It's pretty stout. We bottle it at 100 proof, and it's just unrefined raw whiskey. It's what moonshine is. But it's also the same as what our bourbon is, just the unaged version of it. So for us to start, we weren't going to sell a lot of that moonshine without doing something. So we would make different flavor varieties of it and have it for you to taste. And many of those are still in the product line. For example, our honey lemon. We would make a honey lemon moonshine, and you'd come in and taste it. We only had the one bottle to sell, the straight stuff. But if you liked that product, we would sell you a bottle of the moonshine, and here's the recipe, how you can go home and make it. So that sort of got us through the first 6 months. And by that time, we had developed those recipes to something we could actually bottle and sell. And then after the first year in business, we got an additional small still to make vodka and gin on. So then by within the first year and a half, we had 6 flavors plus the original moonshine, plus vodka and gin and a couple flavored vodkas. And then as time caught up, we had some of the aged stuff. And we were able to accelerate the aging by using small barrels. the smaller the barrel, the faster the product will mature. Your industry standard is a 53-gallon barrel. Those are the big ones you see, probably right out front your building here. But they take time. They take at least 2 to 3 years to age something like that into a quality spirit. So by starting with 5-gallon barrels and 15-gallon barrels, we could bring a product out. Typically, we would do about a 15, 16, 17-month aging. So a little over a year, we started to have some of the brown spirits out, and we continue to do that.
So how long does it take to do a bottle of vodka or gin?
The fermentation is only a 3-4 day process. And then for the vodka, we quadruple distill it. So we have basically start to finish vodka ready to go in a week. Even after we distill it, we do a couple days of carbon filtration. So, ours is an ongoing process. So we pretty much are able to bottle vodka every week now that we have it, but it's not a lengthy process. Once the spirit's done, it's done.
So speaking of age, you see in most homes, they'll have that shelf full of dusty liquors that are up there. Some are half empty. A guest will bring something over that they drink, and then 5 years later, it hasn't been touched unless their kids are watering it down when they sneak a little bit.
Nobody does that.
Nobody does that. Not me, especially ever. But how does this stuff last forever with the cap closed? How long does if you open a good bottle?
Good stuff's going to last indefinitely. Almost all of us use a synthetic cork because it just handles spirits better anyways versus wine, which you want a real cork. So as long as it has some degree of seal to it, you could throw it on your shelf just about forever. Probably is going to outlast most of us. Let's put it that way. So maybe you come across a bottle that's half open or half filled and it's been there for 30 years. It's probably all right. Bottom line is smell it and try it. That's kind of how we operate with everything is try it. Is that ready to go? Are we ready to bottle this bourbon? Let's try it. So,
They're pretty safe there.
Pretty safe bet.
Good.
Very good.
Yeah.
You're going to go dust some bottles
I know.
off.
I'll just start walking into people's homes and be like, this one's got a lot of dust on there. I should probably test it.
There's a lot of neat history.
There'll be a lot left.
Absolutely.
So what are the perfect cabin cocktails for guests, do you think?
Oh, if you ask me, I just want a straight pour of the whiskey, but cocktails are more than that. So you still got to stick with your old fashions up here. A little bit of sweet, a little bit of whether it's the whiskey or whatever else you use on that too. Those are easy. And most people like that sort of thing. If Moscow mules are becoming more and more popular, and it doesn't have to be just vodka. We have a lot of things. In fact, one of our most recent addition to our cocktail menu is the Toddy Mule, which is where we use our honey lemon whiskey with the ginger beer. And I call everything health food, but you got honey and lemon and the ginger beer and whiskey. It's a pretty good combination. It's very spicy, but it's also very warm from the honey and the lemon. So Moscow mules are gaining in popularity, especially with good ginger beers like the one we use or some of the others that are out there too. Those are easy to do up there. It depends on the time of year.
I like them better with bourbon and whiskey too.
Kentucky
than the vodka.
Mule.
Yeah.
And do you need a copper mug for those?
You should.
Is there magic that happens with the copper? Is that
there.
just
that's the appeal to it too? I think.
What the magic is, nobody really knows, but there's magic. Absolutely.
Right.
Let's go with it.
But your favorite thing is just a pour of whiskey.
I like a pour of whiskey. I'm pretty boring. I just like to sip it. If it's an American whiskey, like a bourbon or a rye, I typically like a little ice. If it's a Scotch, I'll typically have it neat. That's me.
And neat means nothing.
Just right up there. Yeah.
Right in the glass.
A lot of people like to splash a little drop of water in their Scotch. I never got into that too. So I just, but that's what I tell people. What if I buy this bottle of bourbon? Is it okay to mix? I'm like, if it makes you happy, go ahead and mix it. If you're going to buy it from me, sure, make yourself happy. But yeah, that's just how I typically like my drinks.
Do you think some of that is because you're tasting it and kind of thinking in your head, how did they put this one together?
Trying to get everything out of it. And that's what's neat about, every barrel is going to taste a little bit differently. When you buy a typical off the shelf, like a Jack Daniel's or a Jim Beam or something like that, they blend multiple barrels together to create their signature flavor. But Jack Daniel's is a good example because they also sell their single barrel, which is how we do ours. We do it single barrel. And they will all be different, one batch to the next. And even the biggest barrels, the 53-gallon barrels, might only produce for them a couple hundred bottles, few hundred bottles. So it's rare that you would get a Jack Daniel's single barrel taste like the other next time you get one. And it's not always night and day differences, but especially if you're able to test one against the other or taste one against the other, you will find, I don't care who you are, people say that I can't taste the difference. Well, sit down and try it and you will. Even vodka. I mean, vodka is supposed to be a neutral spirit, and it generally is, but there are differences, more so because of how it's made, the equipment it's made on, etc. But vodka is different from one to the other. And if you sit and taste those, you'll notice the difference.
I have to sit and have a tasting.
It's a lot of fun. Do that with your friends.
Yeah.
I mean, have a glass and just everybody take a little taste out of it and pass it around. And, someone will act smart, like, oh, I'm tasting, butternut out of this or whatever it might be. I mean, say something like that and people will be either impressed or think well, never mind.
Do you do tasting flights at the distillery?
We do. Yeah, we do flights. We do samples, everything. Yep, you bet.
And can people come and do a tour too to see how you make?
Yeah, we generally do our tours Friday afternoons and then Saturdays because production is typically done. During the week while we're open, there's a lot of production going on. I'll walk in with some people occasionally, but it's tough to do a big tour because of all the activity of production with stills running and 250-degree things going on in there. So we generally do our tours Fridays at 4, Saturdays at 2 and 4, but they're very often you'll see me pull someone in if they have questions and show you what's going on.
So do you want people to call ahead of time and set those up? Or
certainly
just
it's the
walk
best.
in?
It's the best if we know, because then I'm prepared and I'm ready for it and we have things set up for it, because we like to do a few unique things with the tours. But I mean, if we're doing a tour and somebody walks in and says, can I join in? Absolutely.
And we'll link everything in the show notes so that your website's on there and all the ways to contact you.
Some photos of your operation.
That'd be great.
One of the things that I noticed when I was there is it's kind of cool. It looks like a mad scientist laboratory a little bit when you look through the big window.
Would be the operative word.
Yeah. And one of your stills is this big, beautiful copper still. And there's some aesthetic, like, notes to that. Like, you look through the window, you see this cool, it's all these crazy shapes and tubes coming off. Is that fully functional? Is there some artisticness to it when they design those things? Did you tell us the story a little bit about that particular one, which we'll show in the show notes?
I mean, they're all designed for a function more than anything else. One of our stills where we do our vodka, the only non-functional part is actually the column itself is made on the outside from glass. The glass is not functional to the distillation other than maintaining, keeping the vapor inside of there. But the visibility of what goes on, when you do vodka, you do a process called reflux. Essentially, it's distilling it over and over again. Because when we make vodka, we're actually running it off the still as it's coming off the still, flowing off over 190 proof, usually about 190.5 to 191 proof. So it's pure alcohol, basically. You have to go through that reflex process to get it that pure, and it's done in a column still like we have. And what happens is you have most of your vapor as it's being heated being cooled again to a liquid. So you kind of have this battle going on inside the column of vapor pushing up and cool liquid coming back down. And if you don't have, you generally can't see that going on, but with this glass column, it's very visible. It's really cool. And you can see it from the tasting room. People ask us all the time, what's going on with that thing? And it's very visible in the column. So, I mean, that is non-functional other than the visibility end of it. But the others are all functional. We have actually 4 different production stills plus our test still, and they're all designed for different purposes. There's basically 2 ways to make spirits. One is for neutral, which is like vodka. So you basically take whatever you start with and get rid of all the flavor to make it as clean as possible. And the other way is to retain flavor. Whiskey, whiskey, brandies, and rums. Those taste depending on what you start with it. Whether it's you're mashing grains or fruit, you get different taste as a result. So we have a still that's intended to retain flavor. And that's artistic, yes, because it always looks good out there. And there's some function to the art with it too, as far as the shape of the column on top. So it serves both purpose. Primarily, it's more of the function, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have the look of it there too.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, impressive. How would you approach the seasons when it comes to cocktails?
Again, I put everything back to the individual and what they like. Excuse me, I can speak for myself. I typically like straight up moonshine in the wintertime because it's high proof and warms your blood. And it's something about the taste of it that just is nice at then. And I like the edgier ones like that. I mean, I don't think there's ever a bad season for a good bourbon. But, you know, you go with a good light summer drink, a good gin and tonic, you don't typically think of that when it's 20 below. But then again, you don't think of a good hot toddy when it's 90 out either. So, you know, that's the fun about the variety and the different products that we have as well, is that you've got something to match every desire right in there, whether it's sweet, straight up, light, dark, heavy, you name it. There's different ways of doing it.
It looks like you brought us a couple bottles to maybe have a little taste.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, I've got this one bottle that's been sitting up. We did this a while back. It's the one time actually we blended 2 casks where we took one cask that had aged in a used bourbon barrel for about 3 years, and then another cask that aged in a port wine barrel. And we blended those together. Well, we were tasting them separately. We were checking to see if we were going to bottle one. And just for fun, I said, because I really liked the smell of one and the taste of the other, we put them together, and it was really a good combination. So we bottled that as a batch that way. So I brought that along just because it's the last bottle that we had. I kept on my desk when we sold through all these. And then I brought this one, which we actually bottled today. This was, you never fill exactly the number of bottles. There's always some left over. So this was the last of it. And this is our Spring Fever, our double barrel Spring Fever. So this was bourbon that was aged in a maple syrup cask. And it's 90 proof, so it's still strong and it's still whiskey. But I promise when you taste it, you get the sip, you get the sweetness and some of the thickness of the maple syrup on there. So we might have to.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Maybe we'll have a taste here.
We should do that. I'll start with this one first. It's a little lighter.
All right.
Got to get the pour right into the microphone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we got perfect. Yum.
So yeah, there's 2 flavors in this. This is a corn-based whiskey, and this is our normal that we make our bourbon from. But one of the things that we experiment and try all the time is what different casks do to the whiskey, different lengths of time, different size barrels. So this one blended 2 of our 15-gallon used casks, and the one was used for bourbon initially, and that one sat in the barrel for about 3 years. And then the other one was, it was originally our bourbon barrel we gave to a winery outside of Green Bay, Duck Creek. We work with them quite a bit, small little winery just south of town, and they did a port wine in it. And my deal with any of the double barrels is I give them the barrel, but I just want it back. And so we got the barrel back after it had the port, and then we put whiskey in that to pick up some of the sweetness and the nose. That's why I really like the nose of the whiskey on that. And you could smell a little bit of that sweet port wine in on top of the whiskey. We bottled this one at 86 proof, 43%. So it's very sippable. I wish I had more of these going right now. In fact, he texted me today, said, I want to do another port in one of your barrels. I said, I'll get you one as soon as I can. So
Right.
Problem is you have these ideas.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And it takes too long.
It's very
Yes, I'm
smooth.
tasting
That's
first,
super
so.
smooth.
Right?
Couple things. When you're dealing with spirits, your alcohol content is a lot higher than wine, for example. So this is kind of like patting your head and rubbing your belly. You want to put the glass right under your nose, but then you want to breathe in and out with your mouth underneath the glass. What happens if you just stick your nose right in the glass and inhale, the alcohol vapor will tend to overwhelm your senses. So if you just breathe in and out of your mouth with the glass right underneath your nose, then you can pick up more of the flavor without being overwhelmed. And then the best thing to do with whiskey is to chew it. Get it around your mouth. I mean, you pick up different flavors and sweetness, bitterness, whatever it is, all over the mouth. So take a sip of it, move it around your mouth, chew it. And then not like wine tasting, you need to drink the whiskey. That's just how it is.
Interesting. This is very good.
That's delicious.
And take a couple sips too, because it'll taste different the second one and the third one than the first one. The first one, you're still getting used to that high alcohol content and that bit of a burn on there, which if you like whiskey, you enjoy that. But some of us don't as much and want to get through that. So take a couple sips, and there's a lot of flavor. There's a lot of character in there. And then you come up with really cool explanations for them. Sitting in a French bakery.
What's going through my head is what kind of science student you were in high school. Like, was chemistry your thing?
Everything in school was boring. I mean, if I understood what I was missing, and I would have enjoyed it more. I don't know if they are going to ever do that, but I keep telling my kids in the chemistry class, say, anytime you're talking about this stuff, I'd love to have the class in there. I don't know if the school would be into that, but
right.
it's science. I mean, I think if they saw that and understood that that's life and that's how it goes, they would really appreciate it and understand. They'd probably remember something better than just a little laboratory session in school. So,
right.
I wasn't a bad student by any means, but I certainly wasn't exceptional in the sciences either. It's just, I think most of us, you learn a lot more after you're done with school,
right?
And you realize that life keeps learning and teaching you stuff, and that's the only way to do this is to keep learning, and that's what keeps it interesting. That's what keeps life exciting,
right?
Every day we're trying things. Hopefully,
I think that's what comes out too, is your curiosity. Helps you keep making new products and trying it this way and that way, and it's really working for you because this is outstanding.
Yeah.
This one's nice.
Can you buy anything online? Can you sell any of your?
I could sell everything online if I wanted to, except you'd have to come pick it up. So as of right now, the state does not permit distilleries to ship.
Okay.
So I could sell it online, but you still got to come see me. So not at this point. So we don't do any online sales with that too. I know some of the distilleries that are a little bigger have distributors that are licensed to direct ship like that. But that's a different stage just down the road at some point too.
Some of the local stores carry your lines, though.
Yeah,
correct?
We have probably almost 40 some accounts. We actually sell it to a wholesaler who then distributes it for us. And our rep is great. She's actually grew up in the area. She's from here. She knows everybody in town. So she's really beneficial to us to get our product out there. So we're in about 5 or 6 different liquor stores / retailers right now, and about 25 bars and restaurants. And that, they picked up some cases today from us. I don't always know where they're going. They work on that for us, but they update me every few weeks as to where we've gotten our items into. I know we're getting into the Green Bay market, and gonna have some items statewide by the end of the spring, hopefully into summer. As we can continue to increase our production and capacity, then we can give the distributor more, because the last thing you want to do is get it on a shelf and they like it, and then I can't get it to them again. So we're moving into that slowly right now.
And then you have another talent too that we haven't talked about yet. You are a member of a band.
I am, yes, and aptly named Double Barrel. Yeah, we were coming up with ideas for the band, and my wife said, "Why don't you call it Double Barrel?" As we were looking at one of our bottles on the shelf. So yeah, it's just random. Friends I got to know through somebody else through golf, and I've played music a long time. I bought a guitar when I moved to college, when you have that dead time in the middle of the night, and started playing there, and then played in a band when we lived in Arizona for a number of years, and sort of dropped it for 15 years while I moved back up here. Didn't have the time for it. Kids are growing up, and decided I wanted to play a little again. These guys asked, "Hey, would you be interested in playing again?" And 3 of us started kind of playing in a garage about 3 miles from here where we're sitting right now. And then we picked up a singer, and we've had a few other people in and out before, but we've been together for probably 3 years now. And we play a lot of the new country. We have a girl singer who's fantastic. So we do a lot of your Carrie Underwood and upbeat songs like that. But we throw everything in there. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. We do some 80s Def Leppard and Bon Jovi stuff, and some Spice Girls, and you name it. Anything can come out. We've got Pat Benatar is in the works right now.
That's great.
For New Year's Eve. We're going to have a few new songs for that. So it's fun. It's an addiction to play music in front of people. It's just, it's not work. It's a good release. It's a lot of fun. We've been fortunate that we picked up her as a singer because she's fantastic, and we just kind of stay in back and let her do her thing. I mean, we all have other jobs. We all do what we do. So it's very, very part-time. But we're fortunate to have played some neat places too along the way.
And listeners can find out sometimes where to hear you by just being on your website.
Our Facebook page is the best.
And you have a Facebook page?
Yeah, Facebook
okay.
Double Barrel. Yeah,
so we'll
for the
link
Double
that.
Barrel band would be the best. We do have a website, but the Facebook page, same thing with our business. Our distillery website is a little more static, but the Facebook page talks about any of the new stuff we're doing. Like we had 150 pounds of apples that we came across we needed to do something with. So I had a big drill and a cement mixer in there, just chopping them, not cement mixer, paint mixer. Put a video of us just mashing those all up last week, speaking of experiments too. So the Facebook page is a lot more fun because it's quick and easy, and a lot of people follow it. So,
And you have a lot of events happening too.
we're starting to do more and more music, which is great. In fact, I played with our singer and then a former member of our band who actually moved to Nashville. He was back for Thanksgiving and he said, "Hey, can we play?" So the three of us did a little trio thing at our place a couple weeks ago. In fact, she and I and then our bass player are playing on the 21st. But yeah, we're trying actually. I've been booking stuff for early 2020, and we're going to try to keep Thursday as sort of our music night at our place. So working with a lot of local musicians and trying to have almost every Thursday have some sort of music there. It's a good night to do things. We don't have the largest room in the world. So if we get busy from the music, I mean, sometimes it's too busy to do it on a Friday or Saturday, but Thursdays are a great day. And it's typically we just do music like 4 to 7. So the old people like me can get out of there soon and enjoy that. Yeah.
In college, we called it Thirsty Thursday.
Thirsty Thursday. There you go.
That works really well. Yeah.
Yep.
So what are some of your favorite things about living in the Northwoods?
Oh, it's perfect. I mean, living up here is just great. When we moved here from Arizona, people were thinking, "Are you crazy?" But it was crazy living in Arizona. We lived there 6 years year round, and when it's 115 or 120, and when the low is 95, you can't open your windows. You never breathe fresh air. You just can't do anything. I mean, it's cold outside right now, but you could still be active and do things and get out. So the change. When we lived in the South, I missed the seasons. You get it all up here. Sometimes you only get 2.
Yeah.
3 days of summer and then fall, winter. But you know what? It's beautiful. I think there's 2 things I really like. And like I said, when we moved here from Arizona, I would tell people, here's 2 scenarios. You're in Arizona, it's 115 degrees, you're outside, you're hot, you're sweating, and you go in and sit in an air-conditioned room. Ooh, that sounds great, right? Okay, flip it around. It's 20 below, you're outside, you're moving wood, you're stacking wood, you're doing something else, you're outside, come in and sit by a hot fire. I like that option a lot better. But, you drive north of 8 and where the 4-lane gets to the 2-lane coming up here, and the air changes.
Yep.
I mean, it looks differently. When you get snow up here, it sticks and it's beautiful. I mean, I grew up in Buffalo. We got a lot of snow. But then it would melt and it would be gray and ugly, and that's the same thing. Even Wausau and further south, that's what you get. There's something different in that last 50 miles from Wausau and north to where we are, where it just changes, and it's gorgeous. I mean, people wish they would live here, and we're able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So one of the things we do at the Cabincast is talk about your best day, either at the lake or a getaway. When you picture a perfect Northwoods day, from the morning when you wake up to the night when you go to sleep, what do you do in a perfect day?
Well, you have to get up early because sunrises are fantastic. Even this morning, it was red. It was gorgeous. Maybe it was yesterday morning. I'm not sure. They all blend together. So you have to be up early, and you have to have the perfect day is going to be in the summer when the windows are open. You wake up early, the sun's not up yet, but you can smell the fresh air. And I almost don't care what I do that day as long as it's outside. I love to play golf, obviously. We talked about that. So I could be on the first tee at 6:30 in the morning. That would be perfect. But if I don't do that, you could be on the water. I mean, nothing's more soothing than looking at the water out there in the morning as the sun's coming up. One of the things I used to do, in fact, when I was at the country club, if it was a really, really busy day, I made a point to walk down or drive the cart down to the lake for 5 minutes and just look at the water, because it just sort of resets you. And there's so much water up here to see that. So, the perfect day would involve some sort of outside activity for me. It could be golf, it could be hunting, fishing, doesn't matter, just being outside with friends. I could be inside for a lot of it too, as long as you're getting outside to some component of that. And then whatever happens through that day is not as important as you get throughout the day. And then to me, I like around 4 o'clock to sit out and have something, especially if I crafted it. It's nice. But even if I didn't, it's nice to enjoy a cocktail with some friends, and then I would want to grill something. That'd be a perfect day for me. I grilled last night while it was about 10 below. I mean, That's not maybe perfect, but it's really cool.
Takes
when
a
you
little
grill. It
longer to
takes
get
a
the
little
grill hot.
longer, yeah. But eating outside, I mean, I love to eat out on our deck during the summertime. So I would grill something, eat it outside, relax for the rest of the evening with somebody, friends, family, whatever it is. And that was a great day right there.
Perfect.
What's the favorite thing to grill?
Some sort of a steak. Beef steak, a venison steak. It almost doesn't matter. I just like to be out and smell the grill. I mean, probably a perfect world would be a ribeye for me. I would do that. But
And are you bourbon basting?
no, I'm bourbon basting myself.
Yeah.
while I'm
What
grilling.
do you think about people that cook with,
That's fine.
Is that cool?
That's
You're
fine.
good
You
with
know,
that?
I mean, the thing is, you're going to burn off the alcohol, generally speaking. But it's all about the flavor. I tend to like I talked about, I'm kind of boring. I like bourbon straight up. I like the salt, and that's about it. So I'm not into the thick flavors myself. So I don't typically do much flavor adding with that stuff. I just like maybe a little butter and salt and the simple spices, but I like the smell of it and the flavor of the meat. So, hey, if you like bourbon basting, I have a good friend who, any of our limited releases like this one, he'll always get a bottle, and he's posting on Facebook all the time of what he's cooking with of our spirits. I mean, it's so cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. So, I mean, that may not be what I do, but boy, he's all into it. I guarantee you it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
It's,
this was great.
That went by really quick.
It did, didn't
A
it?
lot of fun. Absolutely.
But we'll be seeing you often because we'll be in the distillery and
You got to try that white pine.
I know.
Brian. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any questions for Peter, just let us know, and we'll pass them along, get some answers if it's on the process or his business or anything. Just let us know. Thank
Sounds
you
great.
again.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Cabincast. You can find details and more information in the show notes on our website at www.thecabincast.com. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you won't miss a single episode. Follow us on your favorite social media channels. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Cabincast. We'd also love to hear from you. We want to hear your getaway and cabin stories. For a chance to have your story featured on an upcoming episode, email us at getaway@thecabincast.com. Until next week, enjoy the journey.